Hello, everyone. The Oscars are literally only a few days away. I don't want to waste a single minute of your time. I'm sure you're looking to get those final predictions locked away. And today, I'm joined with Mr. Mark Johnson. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Hey, Ryan, good to join you. Happy to be here.
Really happy to have Mark here because I've never actually met Mark. I've been a longtime fan of him for a long time. Used to listen to him on the award circuit Power Hour back in the day. And yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah, and I know all of us at Awards Daily are a big fan of yours as well, so.
Thanks. That's awesome. And I also want to credit Mark as being one of the first people to introduce me to Oscar stats, because I used to listen on the podcast and he would whip out a stat, a random stat, and I would stop what I'm doing and I would listen to the stat and absorb it, and I just found it fascinating. So
yeah, that's I think my favorite part of the race is seeing, and you can't 100% go with what the stat says, but it's interesting how it has a history and how you have to realize what period we're in with the Academy and what stats matter and maybe what stats are a little bit out of the time period we're in.
Yeah, man. Okay, you ready to rip into this?
Yeah, let's go.
So we're gonna go with Best Picture. Again, we're gonna rip through the ones that you guys all know already. We're gonna try to talk more about the ones that you guys are trying to decide between. So we're starting with Best Picture. And Mark, you have Barbie, right? What do you got?
Yes, I went with Barbie. No, it's Oppenheimer. I mean, it's sweeping through the precursors, so it's hard to bet on anything but Oppenheimer.
Yeah. Yep. So Oppenheimer, and then Best Director, you got Christopher Nolan.
Correct. Yep. I think it's Nolan's time,
Yep.
and again, every precursor went his way. So.
And it's about time. So that's going to be really fun to watch. And then we got Supporting Actress. You're going to go with Divine Joy Randolph, of course.
Yeah, she's the lock of the night. If there isn't like 10 locks, she's the lockiest lock of the night.
Definitely the most secure out of all the actors, right?
Yeah.
All right, so then Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, you're going to do Robert Downey Jr.
Yep.
Okay, cool. That leads us to Best Actor, and I'm sure we have the same, but let's just double check. What are you going to go with?
I was pulling for Bradley Cooper all year, and I held out hope that he would come through with the SAG. But in the end, Cillian Murphy taking Globe, SAG, and BAFTA, it's really hard to predict against that.
And were you predicting Bradley for SAG?
I predicted Bradley from day one up until the moment he lost SAG. I was very stubborn with my Bradley pick, so I kept saying once he loses SAG, then I'll move him out, but not before then. And there you go.
You got to go for it. Yeah, I was feeling Paul Giamatti for SAG for some reason, and when I went to Cillian, I was like, there, it's over. Paul Giamatti's chance is done. Yeah. He lost his shot. Let's go ahead now and talk about one of the most difficult categories to call, one of the tightest Best Actress races in a long time. Well, I think there was one a couple years ago that was really tight too, a 4-way race. But who are you going with? Are you going with Emma? Are you going with Lily?
Yeah, it's this was one of the tougher ones for sure. And actress tends to be lately the category that the acting category that gives us the hardest time. It looked like Emma was plowing her way through the season, and if she would have won SAG, it would have been a clean sweeper for her, but she didn't. And SAG tends to be the most accurate precursor. So, you have Lily with SAG and Globe, and Emma with Globe, Critics' Choice, and BAFTA. So it's pretty, even credential-wise. I went with Lily because I think the tiebreaker is the historic moment that it could create. And I think it'd be hard for them to look past that opportunity. And, I don't think they really think this way anymore, but Emma Stone already has a win, and it's a recent win. So, I don't know that matters too much, being that we are in an era where Frances McDormand has won 3, Christoph Waltz and Mahershala Ali have each won a pair. So could Emma win? Absolutely, but I went with Lily on this one.
Yeah, I think SAG was like obviously it was the moment. So that was when everything changed. I agree with you. I thought it was going to be Emma at SAG, and that was going to be it. I thought she was pretty much wrapping it up. But then Lily came in with the win, and that changed everything. And I think what really changed it is not only her win, but Emma Stone's reaction to the win. Because I felt like, you remember last year, Michelle Yeoh, it almost felt like Cate Blanchett was kind of like, I don't really need it. You kind of got that vibe. She didn't show up at Golden Globes. Right. At the Critics' Choice, she kind of said, oh, can we stop this whole horse race of this, And I felt like she kind of passed the ball. Like, I don't really need it. And that
Yeah.
opened the door for Michelle. And I feel like something similar is happening here where people watching that is seeing Emma Stone react to that and being like, oh, maybe Emma Stone's going to be okay if we don't give it to her.
Yeah, I know Sasha mentioned this on one of our podcasts a little bit ago, but I thought it made sense. And it's, when there's a historic moment like Michelle Yeoh winning or Lily Gladstone winning, and it's historic because first Asian lead actress and first indigenous Native American, I think it is. You don't want to be the person that got in the way of that, right? You don't. It doesn't.
No.
So I think they were almost relieved. And again, former winners. Kate's won twice. So I think there's kind of that, you got to let them have it kind of moment. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think momentum's on her side. I think it is really close. Would you be shocked if Emma Stone's name was read?
Not at all. Nope.
No.
Zero.
There's a part of me where my gut is saying, you know what? I think it's Emma. The performance is showier. It's acting with like a capital A. And I felt like Gladstone is a little subdued, of course. Her performance is low key.
Oh, yeah.
There's that aspect, but then my brain is kind of going first Indigenous Best Actress winner. She won SAG. I mean, that's tipping it statistically ever so slightly in Emma's favor. So my gut's saying Emma still could do it, but then my brain's saying just do Lily,
And those are always the hardest ones when your gut is saying something and your brain's like, It's like, when you trust your gut, if you're wrong, I think it's more painful. They're both painful, I guess. But with Emma, too, Poor Things did really well with the nominations. And, there's an argument to be made, even though there's no evidence really for this. There's an argument to be made that Poor Things is in second place for picture. And if that's the case, and they like it more, they might have liked her more. So, it definitely wouldn't surprise me. And I even think Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of the Fall, I think she's still in the conversation. I think, there's that situation where maybe Hüller and Stone split, but, I think it was Clayton that I was talking to where Sandra Hüller, she's going to get a decent amount of votes. Who of these two does she pull votes away from? And that seems to be the Emma Stone vote because Emma Stone won the BAFTA, the more international prize. So Hüller votes may be pulling away from Emma Stone, which might make the difference for Lily. So it's an interesting race for sure.
I will say the one argument I heard that I thought was pretty solid, I think Luke Hearfield said on his episode, he brought up the voting period and how we can compare this to last year and Michelle Yeoh winning at SAG and then winning the Oscar and how SAG kind of gave her that boost. But the voting period was later. I wish I had the dates.
Yeah, BAFTA was the Sunday, and then 2 days later, the ballots went out. They could start voting. So right after BAFTA happened, they were voting. And then 5 days later, or whatever Tuesday to Saturday is, that's when SAG happened while they still had ballots in hand. So both matter. It just depends, were the voters quick to vote or did the voters hold on and kind of wait to see what SAG did? I'm a member of Critics' Choice, and I know when I get my ballot for the nominations phase, I take my time because I want to make sure I see as many films as I can. But in the winners phase, when I'm voting for winners, I already know what I want to win, and I vote. I get that ballot, I vote. So, if that's the case, then Emma has a better shot.
Lily, at that moment when voting opened, she had only won the Golden Globe, and that was a while ago.
It was a while ago. Yep.
So, I think that is the most compelling part of it is knowing whether there are a lot of people who already voted for Emma Stone and it's too late to switch. I think the one thing that I eventually did, because I actually was very tempted to just go with Emma Stone after hearing that, but I think I just went back to also thinking about my original reaction watching Poor Things, which, by the way, one of my favorite movies of the year, love the movie, but my original reaction of just how it is the entire Academy is going to take Poor Things. Now, we know it's widely liked amongst the Academy, but, I mean, when's the last time, I don't know, you might be able to answer this, but when's the last time there's been, so much sexual, graphic sex scenes tied to that Best Actress winner? I mean, I can't even, I'm trying to think, like, maybe Boys Don't Cry. I mean, I don't even know. Yeah, like, I'm just thinking about that and wondering whether that's going to tip it also in Lily's favor.
Yeah, they tend to like, for many years at least, I should say, they tend to like their lead actress to be young and pretty, and especially when they deglam themselves in a role. Like, think Charlize Theron in Monster, Brie Larson in Room, kind of, that kind of thing. So it's not too often that a performance this sexual even gets nominated, let alone wins. But it's a changing Academy. That's what makes this era with stats so hard. Is you kind of have to. What I've kind of changed over the years. I used to look at like the full 90 plus years of the Academy, and now I've kind of narrowed it down to like preferential ballot era. Like just a shorter window.
Yep.
I think what's winning
2009
recently.
and up, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Tom O'Neill, like from Gold Derby, classic Tom O'Neill, he would throw out that like phrase all the time, like where he said that it's really so much about like what actor do they want to give a hug to?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
More than the performance, like who's our new anointed, prom queen, prom king. And I think that's Lily this year.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think a big part of it, again, going back, I think it's because Emma Stone just opened the door to be like, it's cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Like, I'm cool with it. And I think when people see that, I think that just kind of helps tip it even more. So yeah, so we're both going with Lily Gladstone. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, let's move on to Best Original Screenplay. I think we're going to have the same thing. What are you going with?
Yeah, original screenplay it was a front runner at first, and it kind of just switched and somewhere along the lines. And I don't know really where that change came. Maybe with the Golden Globe when Anatomy of a Fall won screenplay. Globes don't do adapted and original; they just do screenplay. So for it to win there was kind of like, whoa, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Anatomy of a Fall. I think I'm still kind of secretly, or not secretly, but I guess I'm kind of subtly rooting for the holdovers to win this. I really love that screenplay, but
me too.
But Anatomy of a Fall is great too. So it's a great year. You can't be upset too much with some of these winners. So yeah, Anatomy of a Fall is where I went.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I almost feel like the type of screenplay, like Anatomy of a Fall, feels like an adapted.
Yeah.
And American Fiction feels like an original.
Yes, I've been getting that confused. That's why I had to pause for it. I'm like, which one was original? Like I've been doing the same thing all year.
And yeah, and they talked about this on Oscar Expert this morning. In this category, writer and directors win this category all the time.
Okay.
So the winners in this category have gone to the director of that film 12 out of the last 13 times.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And then Justin Triet got that director nom. And I think it was like 9 out of the last 13 winners was also nominated for director. So that's pretty powerful. And so that kind of hurts holdovers a lot there because he's not a director.
Yeah, that's a good stat.
Okay, so moving on to Best Adapted Screenplay. Mark, are you going to go with Oppenheimer? Are you going to go for it? Or are you going to stay safe with American Fiction?
So I had Oppenheimer winning this for most of the season, we'll just say. And it kind of changed after BAFTA, because what I noticed was Oppenheimer won Picture and Director with Globes, but it lost Screenplay. It won Picture and Director with Critics' Choice, but it lost Screenplay. And then at BAFTA, it won Picture and Director and lost Screenplay. So it was starting to become obvious that all these different groups of voters are awarding the two big ones, but kind of spreading the wealth when it came to Screenplay, which is different because typically our Best Picture winners have won Screenplay, in recent years. So I could absolutely see Oppenheimer winning, and if they're all in on it, then it will. But yeah, I went with what I guess is a little bit more the safe play now, especially after Scripter with American Fiction.
Yeah, for me it was really BAFTA. Like knowing that BAFTA was going to go heavy for Oppenheimer, and then they went American Fiction, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Because BAFTA is typically not incredibly they don't always gravitate towards the American stuff, and having a movie called American Fiction, and they're like, yes, we're going to award that. That's pretty interesting. The other thing is that, I know there's been some writer-directors who have won in this category too, but it really feels like it's kind of a branding thing for me. Like, even though he's written a lot of his screenplays, he's more known for his directing work. Oh, yeah. And I just kind of feel like it's just a little bit more of a branding thing. Like, no, you're a director. You're a director boy. You're not a writer. And even though his script was incredible, I think it's like the best script he's ever written. I thought it would personally be my pick in this category. I don't think the Academy really sees him completely as a writer. Like, they really want to give him that director award, and then the writing is just kind of secondary. Do you think at all a possibility for Barbie? Do you think that's a possibility?
I mean, anything is possible. And yeah, I guess there could be, some of the heat that they receive for not nominating Barbie in picture or director and actress could spill into like let's give them this, but I don't see that happening, but it absolutely could.
Yeah, I agree. For some reason, I don't see it just because of just how Barbie's kind of been performing lately. I just don't know if it's got the votes, you know. So we're both going with American Fiction. So far, we're aligning perfectly. And by the way, we haven't talked about these. Just want to let everyone know. This has not been talked about. Okay, cool. So we're moving on to Best Editing. I'm guessing you're going to go with Oppenheimer?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy one there.
Yeah. I've been going for Oppenheimer probably since
the movie came. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Initial predictions.
And then cinematography, doing Oppenheimer?
Same. Yep.
Nice.
Same.
Okay. Then we get to two of the ones that I feel I've been hurting myself the most, actually, was the production design and costume design. Okay, so you're between Poor Things and Barbie on both, right?
Yep.
And have you split them, or did you keep them together?
I kept them together.
You kept them together. Okay. This is going to be scary. Okay. What did you go with for production design?
So I guess for both, because I kept them together, I went with Poor Things. I don't think it's going to be a very good night for Barbie. So when you look at the production design of both films, Barbie's is awesome, but it's almost like that film, and I think a lot of people complain about this because it got moved to adapted screenplay, but its costumes and its production design are adapted from what was already established with toys. Whereas Poor Things is like the complete flip of that, where it's so inventive and creative and beautiful looking that I think that will be the difference in the production design side.
The other thing is Critics' Choice went with Barbie in this category. They have a really pretty decent track record with matching with the winner.
Yeah.
And the other thing, though, I would just say is that I feel like I kind of don't trust Critics' Choice this year just because they went way too heavy for Barbie.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
And it's showing that Barbie is not as popular as it was with Critics' Choice. And even when they awarded trophies at Critics' Choice, it wasn't even that popular in winning awards. It felt like at Critics' Choice than we were expecting when nominations were announced. Right now, I currently have Poor Things for production design. And kind of speaking of what you're talking about, I do feel like Barbie could win this and win costumes. I think it easily could happen because of the sets and because it's a pink world and because Barbie Land is just like Wakanda Forever, you know? It's just a very fun movie. It's eye candy. So I could easily see it winning. But kind of going back to what you said and just taking a deep breath and going, which films are surging right now and like which ones are not winning? And kind of agreeing with you that I just don't think Barbie has that momentum right now. It came out a long time ago. I think the enthusiasm was kind of surging at nominations, and then it kind of just been dying down when it comes to actually collecting wins. Yeah. I don't feel confident about it.
No. Definitely not confident. Yeah, no.
So for costume design, you're going with Poor Things as well.
Yeah. Poor Things won the Costume Designers Guild for period costumes, which typically is the category that shows up really well with overlapping with Oscar. And again, the costume design and production design, probably why you put these two together, they overlap a lot of times. They pair up. It's I think it's 20 in the last 23 years, 10 times have these two awards gone to the same film that year. So they have a pretty good connection, and I think it's kind of one of those roll the dice, but whatever you do, I would double down.
So do you think Barbie is a threat to win costume design, or you feel pretty confident? Yeah.
No, I don't feel confident in either one of these two. I think it's between those two. I feel confident that it'll be one of those two, but yeah, Barbie could absolutely win costumes here. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I feel is that BAFTA loves Poor Things more than the Academy. That's what I think. And I think Critics' Choice likes Barbie more than the Academy does. So who do I trust, you know? Do I trust BAFTA? Do I trust Critics' Choice? And I currently have Barbie, and I've decided to split it. And I don't feel confident about it. I think maybe it is safer to probably just do Poor Things in both. To be honest, I asked Yvette in the other room. I said, Yvette, here are the nominees: Poor Things, Barbie, costume design. She said, costumes? She said, Barbie. And I said, why? She said, because there's more costumes and also like they're catchy. You know, they caught her eye. And I went through each year with her just to see if she would match up. And she was matching up. She's like, Wakanda. Or she was saying all the costume designs. And I was like, wow, interesting. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to go with Barbie.
What the hell?
Exactly.
Then we can blame
And do you
Yvette
feel-
if it's wrong, right? She's your out.
What are you more confident in?
Which of those two? Yeah, I guess production design for Poor Things.
Same with me. Because there's a risk that Barbie could win both, and because there's a risk that Poor Things can win both, I've decided just to split it, and thinking that in some kind of more miracle, I'll get both of them right. But if I don't, I'll at least get Poor Things right. Yeah. And if it goes to Barbie both, I at least covered my base with costume. So
it's called hedging. You're hedging your bet. It's smart, and I think if it does hit, you'll be one of probably few that split it that way, right? Because I think a lot of people probably are taking Barbie for both or Poor Things for both. So hitting on something like that would give you probably a boost in the overall score.
Oh, I'll be famous.
Yeah, right.
Why don't you take it away to the next one, actually?
Remind me what the next one is.
We're doing makeup.
Oh, for the love of God. So makeup is, to me, there's two awards that we'll go back and forth on until the moment the envelope is opened. Makeup and visual effects being the other one. That, to me, visual effects is the hardest. Makeup is really, really tough because you have Maestro basically up against Poor Things. And as you saw, I just gave Poor Things 2 Oscars. And I don't think Poor Things is going to win a ton of Oscars. And Maestro was so good with the makeup. So this is a really, really, really tough one. With the Makeup and Hairstyling Guild, they've been around since 1999, but they took an odd hiatus from 2004 through 2012. In the time since they've returned, 9 out of 10 makeup artists, the guild, have overlapped with Oscar. The one time they didn't was the Tammy Faye year. So the Makeup and Hairstyling Guild has a little bit more seamless stat than BAFTA, which is 6 for 10. And I just think at the end of the day, when you look at Maestro, it'd be a real travesty, I think, if that was not to win. Maestro.
I have currently Maestro as well, if it makes you feel any better.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
I think this one, I feel more stressed out by costume design than I do makeup. I feel pretty confident it's Maestro. You're going to think about the makeup. You're going to compare Willem Dafoe, Bradley Cooper.
Right.
Those are the two people. You're not going to think Emma Stone. Those are the two faces. One supporting, one didn't even get nominated. One did get nominated. One actually did pretty well. Got into picture. The Whale won last year. It didn't get into picture. And I know Bradley Cooper's not winning, and there's not going to be a nice little makeup pair up. But I still feel like Maestro could be that film that they're just going to say, hey, there's your award. Maestro's been part of that makeup conversation since the beginning.
Right. Since that first image.
Yeah, first image, people talked about the makeup, for better or for worse, The other thing, too, is I've noticed that people have brought up, like, Catherine Hunter and Poor Things. Like, oh, she has all those tattoos on her arm. Like, that's also makeup. Right. I don't think Oscar voters even are aware of that. I don't think they know that's makeup. I don't think that's what they think about when they think about makeup.
I forgot about it, honestly.
Yeah. It's really Willem Dafoe, right? His face.
Yeah, it's Willem Dafoe. Yeah.
Also, when I've kind of noticed when there's an option in this category where the makeup is used to really like physically transform an actor in a kind of a grounded, dramatic way, The Whale or like Tammy Faye, Ma Rainey, Black Bottom, they usually win. So yeah, I feel very confident. I think it's going to be Maestro. Good. I don't think it's going to be Poor Things.
I'm glad you're confident because I am. I don't know why. I just got a bad feeling about this.
If it's not Maestro, I'm going to send you a basket of. I will send you a basket of goodies and an apology letter. I think it's Maestro. Let's go into best score. So I have Oppenheimer, and you have Oppenheimer.
Yes, Oppenheimer.
Okay. And then best song. I knew it was going to win since I saw the movie. What was I made for? What do you got?
Okay, I made that switch. So I same thing. I was on Billie Eilish from the moment the movie was released, and I heard the song, and it plays in the it's kind of woven into the score, which I think helps it a lot. But somewhere when I watched it a second time, that I'm Just Ken number really stood out a little bit more to me, and I think it's the highlight of the film, so I could definitely see it winning. But Billie Eilish, I missed this category a couple years ago when Billie won. I went with I think the Dos Orgaritas song from Encanto. Mm-hmm. So I'm not betting against her twice. So
So we're both going for What Was I Made For, and then best sound. There's two contenders probably on the table. Oppenheimer and Zone of Interest, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the BAFTA win for Zone of Interest, I think, threw everybody off for a moment, but yeah.
But are you going with Oppenheimer?
Yeah, I'm going Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the safer bet to go with Oppenheimer.
Yeah, it's one of the tougher categories that I have the most confidence in. Like I don't like when you see Oppenheimer, I mean, nothing against the Zone of Interest. The Zone of Interest sound is great, but it's a little bit more subtle. It's more of like what sound mixing would have been in the past when we had two sound categories. A lot of times musicals would win sound mixing, and I know obviously Zone of Interest isn't a musical, but it's kind of that same way where it's a background thing with dialogue heavy over it. Whereas sound editing back in the day would always go to like the big war movie, the big loud special effects movies.
Yeah. The big boom.
Yeah. So I think, back in the day when we had two, I probably would have predicted Oppenheimer for sound editing and Zone of Interest for mixing, or maybe Oppenheimer for both, just because, again, those days were crazy. Sound was always a big pain in the ass. But as one category, I think you walk away from Oppenheimer, like, how were you not mesmerized by the sound of that film?
Yeah, so when I saw Roma in theaters, I remember a few years ago, like, I remember feeling like, oh, wow, this is such great sound. Like, this should win sound. And it's very subtle, like Zone of Interest sound, though it's not used in quite the same, like, impactful way. But I'm thinking about how these people are going to see Zone of Interest. I feel like it's a movie you have to see in theaters to really, like, appreciate that sound. I don't know if they would appreciate the sound the same way they would on their TVs at home. So that's why I'm not really too scared about Zone of Interest winning here. Moving on to animated feature, 2 movies on the table, Spider-Man Across the Universe, or you can get risky and go with Boy and the Heron. Are you getting risky?
No, I don't think this is going to be a close one either. I think, it's definitely a 2-horse race, and Boy and the Heron could win, and I wouldn't be totally shocked, but I think Spider-Man's pretty easy call here.
Yeah. I think kind of similar to sound category. Like, if it goes for Zone of Interest, okay, that would be like a real shake-up and wake-up call to like, oh, wow, this Academy is changing pretty rapidly, because this would never happen in like an older Academy. And same with animated feature. Like, if Boy and the Heron wins here, even though I know he's won before, I still feel like the Academy's not there yet to award it. I'm thinking about like older voters. I always think about older voters too, because I always feel like they're the ones that really push a movie over the line or not. I know they're not going to love Spider-Man probably too. I know they're not going to love Boy and the Heron probably either, to tell you the truth. I could see a lot of them going for Elemental, and I'm not making a case for Elemental. Elemental's not going to win.
Interesting.
But I could see maybe like a lot of people, like older voters who liked Elemental, and giving that the vote and kind of splitting that vote between Spider-Man and Elemental, kind of creating a pathway for Boy and the Heron. But yeah, I think it's just a safer vote to go with Spider-Man Across the Universe.
Elemental's pretty interesting too, because if there is a third horse in the race, it would be Elemental, I think, because along with Boy and the Heron and Spider-Man, the only other nominee to get the BAFTA nomination for animated was Elemental, and no film has won the Oscar for animated without a BAFTA nomination first in the 23 years they've been doing it now. So it's kind of a crucial one, but that's also another stat that kind of makes me feel pretty confident in Spider-Man here is the Ace Eddie nomination. 13 out of 14, I think it is, have been nominated for Ace editing, and Spidey not only was nominated but won that award, and Boy and the Heron was not nominated. So
okay,
there's a lot of interesting stats I think attached to animated, and a few of them I kind of go, is it just coincidence maybe? But I think this is kind of one to not overthink too much.
Yeah.
That being said, it could be Heron. The one of the biggest things maybe that you could say in argument for Heron winning is he has talked about this being his last film, and if it is his last film, and there's that sentiment, then that could win some votes over his side. But I think he's said that before a few times.
Yep.
And it has, so.
Now we're down to the last 3. We have documentary. You doing 20 days?
I am doing 20 days.
I'm doing 20 days as well. International feature film, Zone of Interest. It would be crazy not to do that, right?
Yeah. We're almost getting to a point where this category, is it even necessary anymore? As the voting branch becomes more and more international, and you end up with a movie or two this year nominated for Best Picture that's also, over in international. How can you say it's one of the 10 best films of the year? These other 4 are not, but it's not the best film of these 5. So just logic makes it impossible to bet against Zone of Interest, but it's pretty easy.
If Anatomy of the Fall was in this category,
I'd be betting on Anatomy. I'd be going for Anatomy.
I think so too. So now, actually, we have a few more. So let's rip through these as much as we can. Hold on, let me just double check. Yeah. Okay. We've been matching, by the way, every single time except one category so far. So that feels good.
Costume, right?
Costumes, yeah.
Yeah.
This is good. This is making me feel better about my choices. But now we're down to visual effects. This was one that I think you told me that you were like having heart attacks over.
Yeah, this is the hardest one of the night in my opinion, and it's by far the hardest. I'm going to do a shameless plug and say my Oscar predictions posted today at Awards Daily. I ranked my predictions in order of easiest to call to hardest to call. Visual effects is the last one. And I did a very in detail summary. I don't want to go into it because I'll be talking forever if I talk about some of the stats I wrote. But I basically broke it down to the 3 films that are really in contention. You have Napoleon, which has the production design stat that we talked about earlier. It's the only one with that production design nomination. You have Godzilla, which we've been talking about, that passion vote. And what film maybe do they like? Mm-hmm. Godzilla is sitting at a 98%, both critics and audience on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's a pretty well-liked film. Yeah. And then you have The Creator, which is the most visually effect film. It's also nominated for sound, which is a huge tie over for this category as well. So I'd encourage, if you're struggling with this one like I am, I encourage you to read that breakdown. But in the end, this felt like it was going to be Oppenheimer. Then it didn't make the short list. When it didn't make the short list, this felt like a no-brainer for Poor Things at that point, right? Because production design was going to be there. The visual effects are pretty amazing. And then Poor Things didn't get nominated. So none of the 5 are Best Picture nominees. It's just a total crap show, we'll say. In the end, I don't know what to do other than go with VES's biggest prize, and so I am going with The Creator.
You're going with The Creator, okay. Okay, I had to break it down too because it is a very confusing one. Yeah. I originally was gonna just stick with the production stat. I didn't care, and I was just gonna do Napoleon. But it just doesn't feel like it's Napoleon.
No.
Yeah, I saw an anonymous ballot the other day where they said, I'm so mad that my favorite film wasn't even nominated. Napoleon wasn't nominated. And then later down their ballot, they said, what are you voting for visual effects? And they said, I'm voting for The Creator. Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But they weren't voting for Napoleon. So we found the one person who loves Napoleon, and they won't even vote for it for visual effects.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, I don't know if we've already said it, since 2000, only one time a film won visual effects without production design nomination over a film with a production design nomination. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, gotcha.
Is that right?
Yeah. Mine is just simply, it has to have it.
The stat against Godzilla. This is one I found. You have to go back all the way to 1999 to find a visual effects winner that wasn't nominated at BAFTA. Yeah. Godzilla doesn't have a BAFTA nomination. You have to go back all the way to 1998 to find a winner here that wasn't nominated at BAFTA. What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
That's how long ago it was.
There are quite a few statistics that would tell you Godzilla winning would be historic in this category. There are several stats like that. And just to mention this too, the one that it last happened at, you just 1999, that's back when BAFTA took place after the Academy. So it wasn't even a precursor at that time. In 2000, BAFTA moved in front of the Oscars. So it became a precursor, right? So I just wanted to say, there are a few other stats along with that make Godzilla winning historic. Because I was leaning when I was replacing Napoleon because of the production design stat. I like you was writing that one for a while, but I almost switched to Godzilla. But the more research I did on it would be historic.
So I'm going to go ahead and spoil it now. I'm going with an historic win. I'm putting Godzilla down. And the only thing I was thinking about is there's another stat since 2010, a Best Picture nominee, when they're in this category, they usually win. 13 of the last 14 times the Best Picture winner is in there. So no one's nominated for picture, so it's not relevant. But when there's not an option for Best Picture in there, I feel like the Academy typically goes for the one that was closest to being a Best Picture contender. I'm thinking like there's the year where First Man won over Avengers Infinity War.
Right.
I feel like First Man was obviously closer to getting a Best Picture than Avengers. Blade Runner 2049 won over War of the Planet of the Apes. That was closer to getting Best Picture, I would say, than Planet of the Apes or War of the Planet of the Apes. Like you mentioned, Godzilla has a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's the most critically acclaimed film. Lily Gladstone has a narrative going on. I feel like there's a little narrative that people are aware of with Godzilla being kind of like an underdog in the category. Yeah. It didn't win BAFTA, but it couldn't win BAFTA. It wasn't nominated at BAFTA.
It's the only one not nominated at BAFTA.
If they award the creator, I think, I have to do my research, but I think this would be probably the worst reviewed movie they've awarded in a while. And it's very close, though, to Tenet, because I think Tenet was around the same Rotten Tomatoes score on that. But Tenet, if you look at that category, too, that was obviously closer, because it was during a pandemic year. So that was obviously closer, if you look at that category, to getting Best Picture than any of the nominees. So it was kind of like a default, like, we don't really like Tenet, but here's Tenet. I don't know if the voters are going to sit down with the creator DVD. I know that it was nominated for sound, but I don't know if 2 nominations is enough for them to be like, I'm going to pop in the creator and watch it. I don't know if there's any energy around the creator. If I was voting, I would vote for the creator. So there's that. I think it is the most impressive visual effects. If they've seen the creator is the question. If they've seen the creator, they might vote for it, or they most likely would vote for it. But I think Godzilla is a movie that I don't even think you have to even watch to award, because there's a story behind it. And you're like, oh, I saw the reaction video from all the team from Godzilla. I want them to win. I feel like the momentum might be with Godzilla the creator, and I know they've never awarded a Godzilla movie, but I feel like there's never been a Godzilla movie this well received, and it's possible at the end of the day that the movie closest to being nominated for Best Picture in this category, I don't think it's the creator. It's probably Napoleon, or it's Godzilla.
I'd agree. I think Napoleon makes sense. And Napoleon showed up in a couple other areas, production design, I want to say costume.
Yeah, I got costume and production design.
Did you get costume? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's really hard. And again, between these three, you could make a case for or against all of them. But the case for Godzilla, like you mentioned, it's the passion vote. It's that video of their reactions, and that made people love to see that. They love the feel good story. So it's definitely an interesting slap. But that's basically what you're betting on if you're betting on Godzilla, is the passion part of it. You're right about the creator, and maybe they won't watch it and whatnot, but it's the thing that creator has going for it is you don't really have to see the creator to see the effects. You can see it in the stills and go, oh shoot, that looks really good. Because like you, I think it's long been the best visual effects. If you take Oppenheimer out of the race, it's got the best visual effects. It's just, I'm not a huge fan of the movie. I think the movie's rough. I think it actually would probably benefit them if they don't see it and instead they look at just stills and go that way. One thing you said too that I want to echo on is the Best Picture nominee factor to this, because Chris Tapley brought this stat up several years ago when he was within contention. Ex Machina kind of broke the streak in 2015, but before that, you had to go all the way back to 1970 to find a Best Picture nominee that lost to a non-Best Picture nominee in this category. So like it is a huge thing when there is that Best Picture nominee, which is why if Poor Things just got in this would be one of the easiest calls of the night. It has the production design, and it has Best Picture. Oppenheimer makes it even more easy because it has picture, production design, and sound, which is like, if you have all three of those, forget it. So yeah, this is a total roll the dice. Again, I think it's, to me, by far the hardest, because all three of those movies could win, and I wouldn't be too surprised. And honestly, if Mission Impossible won, I wouldn't be surprised either. So
yeah, I'm trying to make a case for Godzilla really just to make myself feel better, but I really wouldn't be surprised by any of these at all.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I would be a little surprised, I guess, by Napoleon, and if Napoleon wins, I will never go against that stat again.
I know.
I'm
rooting for Napoleon. I want Napoleon to win.
Just for the stat.
I love my stat. Yeah, I want that stat to keep going. I'm definitely rooting for Napoleon there. if not creator. If it's Godzilla, I'm going to be so pissed because I didn't pick it. I didn't predict it to get in the nomination phase. I didn't think it would. And honestly, the Visual Effects Society, the guild that votes on effects, they didn't think much of it either. If you look at their nominations, they only nominated it in one category, which was outstanding animated character. Right? Not even like visual effects. It was like Godzilla looks good.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like it got a minor nomination, with VS. So there's there's a lot of stats against it, but one of the stats that it's not really a stat is it has the passion. Most film Twitter especially, and that's where you have to be careful not to get too sucked into the film Twitter bubble,
Yeah.
because that is a vacuum. It is not reality. And
Yeah.
if film Twitter was giving this award out, it would have been Godzilla months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but it feels like that's where the passion is. That's where, in that reaction video, like you said, it's going to be interesting for sure.
I think people get bogged down in looking at the craft and saying, what is the best visual effects? When really we should be thinking about what is the movie that they like. Like, I think that's really what it comes down to a lot of these times. That's how I got screwed on Babylon, because I was like, best score is Babylon. So I'm not going to think it. It's the best score. But
Right.
I got to remember, they didn't like Babylon. They didn't like it.
Yeah.
So they're not going to award it. I think the big challenge was getting Godzilla in there. And I think since Godzilla got that nomination, I think that could be the victory for them. But I think I think the narrative's in their side. But yeah. Okay, I think we talked about that enough.
Yeah.
So I haven't convinced you though, but I just made you more nervous, right?
I mean, if it wins, I'm not at all surprised because of the passion side, but it will be historic because it is missing everywhere it needs to hit.
And if the creator wins, that would make sense just because I was like, oh, well, I mean, it was the best,
Yeah. Of course. It'll be one of those categories that when it happens, we'll be like, oh yeah, of course it won. Yeah, whatever.
Of course.
Yeah.
In fact, didn't I have that? No, I didn't. Oh, I meant to change it.
Right.
But now we're down to our final three, and let's start with live action. So we have a few movies, I think, on the table. I did a full video on shorts. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link up here. Like, it's way too long. 30 minutes long, I go through all these shorts. And I bring up a bunch of different stats. By the way, have you seen all these shorts?
I have. Yeah, I've seen all 15 nominees, and I saw like 40 out of 45 of the long list or the short list of films. Yeah, I try to always see as many of these as I can, hoping that seeing them will help me predict, but every year it doesn't help me. It never helps me predict. So there's really no advice I have when it comes to these short films. Go with the one you like, if that makes sense. Go with consensus if you want to play it safe, which is what I did, even though what I did I also liked. So I think what I liked is consensus, which when those two go hand in hand, that might be a good sign. But yeah, I went Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I mentioned on our All This in the Oscars 2 podcast on Awards Daily, I don't like seeing big star directors and big star actors show up in these short films. I think these short films should be reserved for up-and-coming filmmakers trying to get their big break and student filmmakers, that kind of thing. I wonder if Academy members feel that same way and won't vote for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. But if you look at the other nominees, The After has David Oyelowo. The Red, White, and Blue one has, I forget her name, but a semi-famous actress. Brittany Snow, yeah. Apparently they don't think that way. But The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar is probably the one they all saw because of the big name cast and Wes Anderson. So that's the one I went with here.
I think it's just obviously the safer bet. I know that the Red, White, and Blue is a real threat. I've heard real reactions from people who really loved and responded to that movie. It's timely. It's about the abortion issue. So yes, so that's a real threat I can see. And I do see your point in the idea that a lot of people will feel the same way you do about, that this category should be for up-and-comer filmmakers, not for big-time filmmakers to come in and snag one. That being said, I just don't know if it's wise to go against Henry Sugar. And yeah, I feel pretty good about it getting. And the other thing too is I actually would feel the same way too. I feel that way where I go, I don't want to see Wes Anderson in this category or people like that, because what would this category turn into? We don't want this category to be a category where it's just, all the famous directors' latest short. But at the same time, if I'm actually voting, it's so hard to say that another one of these shorts is better than the craft that is involved in Wes Anderson. I mean, how do you compare? We're both going with Wonderful World of Henry Sugar. All right, so let's move over to, let's do documentary short.
Another tricky one, huh?
Yeah, another tricky one. I literally just went with my heart on this one completely. I just picked the one that I responded to the most and liked the most. And I think there is some previous winners that kind of fit amongst this movie. I went with The Last Repair Shop.
Yeah, same for me. And
same?
Like you just said, for all three of these, I just went with the one that I liked the most. And when the film that I like the most is also like the consensus bet, I'm gonna just do it and walk away. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out what's gonna win these, because it does me no good. But yeah, I have The Last Repair Shop.
Well, I did that last year with Elephant Whisperers. It was my favorite. It was the consensus, and then I somehow tricked my brain into
that's
going,
what
but
I
Malala,
did too.
she was a part of that other movie, so that I went.
I did the same thing. I'm like, but Malala's behind it.
You can overthink it a little too much, but yeah, out of all the movies, out of all the shorts, this one was actually my favorite of all three. Yeah. I do think Nine is a threat to win. I know that director, he's on a roll right now, but I don't think the voters are completely aware of his trajectory right now. The other one that a lot of people are going for is the ABCs of Book Banning.
That's the one I'm afraid of.
That's the one I'm afraid of too, just for the political angle of it. But it's not a great short. Did you like the short?
No, I actually felt very strongly against it. It felt very one-sided. Like, we have book banning on both sides of the aisle, but they took a very hard stance on it. And, I think it's one of those, if you're voting for Red, White, and Blue, which we just talked about, has a little bit of a political angle for it. If you're predicting that one, this would be a good companion piece to maybe predict with it.
A lot of people do abstain from watching these, so a lot of voters won't vote for these categories. They will abstain. But for those who actually do vote, I do think a lot of them do sit down and watch it. And if they do, I just can't imagine anything but Last Repair Shop is the one that people don't walk away with thinking, both on a technical filmmaking level and an emotional level, that this one is not the best.
Yeah, and they've been advertising the hell out of that for a long time. Like, I remember ads for that last year. Yeah, so they've been pushing it really well. We'll see.
And then that brings us to our last category. It's over. It's almost done. Matched up pretty well. Let's see if we match up here. This one is the one, Mark, you wouldn't even know this. This is the one that I have been pulling my hair out actually over this one category. And the consensus amongst a lot of pundits is different than mine. What are you going with?
So I probably have the consensus one, last I checked. War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. Of the 15 shortlisted animated films, that was my second favorite. My favorite was Humo, which means smoke. That was not nominated. I really love that one. I was really shocked to see it miss, but then I reminded myself it's the shorts, so nothing is surprising. But I did really like War is Over, and again, very timely with the war in Russia and Ukraine and whatnot. So what about you?
I originally thought Letter to a Pig could be a spoiler, but now I am bouncing between 95 Senses and War is Over, because people are convincing me that War is Over is a real threat. Now, what I've heard a lot of people talk about how War is Over is going to win because they're just going to, they're going to see John and Yoko's name and they're just going to go, boom, I'm going to vote for that. I'm really bouncing. I didn't love War is Over that much at all. Okay. My favorite of the group really was 95 Senses.
Yeah, it's really good.
For animated short, you're going for War is Over. I'm still sticking with 95 Senses. And I'm going to throw out one more thing. And I mentioned this in my other video, and this is probably not correlative, but I'm just kind of saying it to make myself feel better. I looked up the Letterboxd scores because I was curious what range the Letterboxd scores and the usual winner is in. And usually the winner all the way back, I think every single one dating back to 2010 was in that 3.5 to 3.8 range. They all fit in that range.
Okay.
And War is Over is at a 2.7 right now.
Oops.
So that's the one thing I did notice.
Okay.
Letterboxd is not the Academy. I understand that. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, well, that's something. And I'm going to hold on to that. And 95 Senses is a 3.7 or 3.8 last time I checked.
Wow. Yeah.
So it fits right in there.
That's a good one.
And I can't go outside my stat.
No.
So I'm going to go with 95 senses for that reason.
Love it.
All right.
So we had three different.
Okay, 3 different now, yeah.
Costume, I think it was. Visual
Costume,
effects and animated
visual
short.
effects, and animated short. Well, good luck with your Oscar predictions. Good luck with everyone with your Oscar predictions. If you disagree with any of us, let us know. It's never too late for us to change our predictions.
Oh, it's too late for me.
It's too late for you?
Once I
You're
hit,
done?
yeah, once I hit publish, I walk away. My article's out there. That's it. It's locked down. I'm not, because at this point, they've already turned in their ballots. So whatever it is done.
That's the healthy thing to do. I like to continue moving on and keep moving things around, and then I miss 4 more.
Right. Yeah. Moving things around. Those last minute moves. I can't tell you how many last minute moves end up costing me way more often than they help me. So, go with your gut, pick something, stick with it, and get the hell out.
Well, Mark, it's great having you. I'm so glad to finally meet you. I'm so
Yeah.
glad to finally have you on here, and I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
And guys, if you want to read some of Mark's great work, he talks a lot of stats all the time. You can check that out on Awards Daily. I'll leave a link in the comment section below. And so check out his work. He does really great stuff over there at Awards Daily. But thanks, Mark, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And those are probably going to be our Oscar predictions that we're sticking with. Those are our final Oscar predictions. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. And feel free to comment below what you're predicting for the Oscars. Follow me, Letterboxd and Twitter. Links in the bio. Thanks always for watching. And until next time, I will see you at the Oscars, which is like in 2 days, by the way.